Kevin Hansen, Jail Chief for the Sheriff. I just wanted to take an opportunity today to discuss with the Commission and the members of the Commission and the public about the jail cap and about the need for a jail cap and about the reasoning behind a jail cap. The jail has 74 general population male inmate beds, and they have 20 female inmate beds for a total bed count of 94. That's not counting holding cells or the alternative sanctions or alternative sentencing program. The jail was originally built and designed for 48 prisoners. Throughout the years, additional bunks were added and remodeling occurred, resulting in the current bed count of 94. In April 2016, I became aware of confusion by some members of the Board of County Commissioners on how many beds actually existed in the facility. So on April 24th, we gave a tour to the Board of County Commissioners, the members, and we actually counted beds, and we came up with 94. Today, members of the community are still telling us that some members of the BOCC are confused about the number of inmate beds and have stated the jail has plenty of space and staff to not necessitate a reduced inmate population cap and booking restrictions. In 2017, the 2017 approved jail budget, which is a sub-budget under the sheriff, was approved by the Board of County Commissioners at $4,973,427. In June 2017, the BOCC announced a 7.5 mid-year budget reduction, cutting the jail budget by almost $530,000. Of the $4.9 million budgeted for 2017, $3.4 million is for salaries and benefits, which are exclusively negotiated between the Corrections Deputy Union and the Board of County Commissioners. The sheriff doesn't have any control over that. $700,000 of that is spent on medical services, $200,000 for inmate food, $200,000 for overtime and holiday pay. That leaves only $400,000 for ER&R and inmate supplies, operating supplies, training, etc. The point of that statement is that there's very little discretionary spending available to us to make a $500,000 cut, short of cutting personnel. So since September 2016, the jail staff is concentrating on efficient and safe operations. We managed to reduce the inmate food costs from $450,000 that was budgeted in 2016 to less than $200,000 by contracting services from private industry. We eliminated $300,000 that was budgeted in 2016 in outsourcing expenses by opening the remodel and housing our own females on site. And with the cost savings efficiencies realized by the jail staff, we opened the alternative sentencing area 4 months early without BOCC funding. The jail has 31 uniformed corrections deputy positions, 2 support staff positions, 3 community service officers, 1 lieutenant, and 1 chief. The 2016 average jail population was 130 inmates. The minimum staffing to manage this population while maintaining custody, security, and control of the prisoners in a safe, efficient, and constitutional manner is 4 deputies, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. That consists of 1 control room operator, 1 supervisor, and 2 corrections deputies to manage the facility. During the mid-year 2017 cuts, we had 5 vacant deputy positions that we're in the process of hiring for and filling. Those 5 vacant positions equated to an annual expense of $425,000. Faced with the draconian, non-emergent, and excessive mid-year cuts, we had very limited options and had to unfund the vacant corrections deputy positions. This resulted in a 15% reduction of our jail staff. As some may know, it takes roughly 5 employees to cover 1 8-hour shift, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. This reduction forced us to reduce our minimum staffing by 1 8-hour position on night shift from 4 deputies to 3, often leaving 1 supervisor, 1 control room operator, and 1 corrections deputy in the jail to manage 100 inmates between the hours of 2200 and 0600. To manage the general inmate population above 94, we need to have our full complement of staff. The sheriff's obligation is to provide safe, efficient, effective working and living conditions for our jail staff and inmates while protecting our community. We cannot keep our inmates, community, and staff safe while managing the same number of inmates with 15% less staff. With the reduction of staff, we were forced to reduce the inmate population cap proportionately, resulting in a new cap of 80 inmates from 94. The only way to manage a jail population cap is by carefully selecting who takes priority for the jail beds during the jail acceptance process. People who are an imminent threat to community safety will always have a bed. People contacted for minor offenses will be allowed to self-report to the courts. People committing serious crimes against others will always be booked. But people committing property crimes will generally be referred to the prosecutor's office. Despite our desire to fulfill our mission, and due to circumstances beyond the sheriff's control, without proper funding, staffing, and facility space, the jail's essential purpose cannot be fulfilled and public safety is compromised. Any questions?
I do.
Go ahead.
There was 5 unfilled positions that were cut during the last cut.
In July.
Yes. How many that were already hired and already working were cut?
0.
Okay. And are you aware that, I appreciate your numbers, what you're saying, but are you aware that when we did the expansion of the jail at the Sheriff's Department's request, that if we expended this money, we were told, and it's all in minutes and brought up, that we would increase the population from 121 standard to 144 with utilizing boats and stuff like that, but that would bring our population up to 144 if we were to expend that money. Are you aware of any of that?
I was not involved in those conversations, but I will tell you I did some research on that. In 2006, the average daily population in the jail was 86 prisoners. And the sheriff then, which was not Sheriff Salisbury, put a population cap, an arbitrary population cap on the jail of 100 inmates. And what he says was, anything above 100, we're putting a population cap on. So then shortly after is when the DSU was done in 2006, which added 44 beds. So therefore, that's how we came up with the number of 144. We don't have 144 beds. We took you for a tour, we counted the beds, and there's 94 beds in the jail, not counting holding cells, not counting boats, and not counting short-term housing. You can't count those as beds. I need those cells for people who come in who are drunk, who are wanting to fight our staff, and we need to have the availability to not house people there.
And again, this number of the 144 was after that renovation back then. Matter of fact, that same area is what was renovated with this money, but we were promised 144 beds, excuse me. On top of that, did you know that we were also explained that we will help to pay for this because we bond out, that by increasing the SWIFT and certain funds up to $750K a year. These things are all factors. Now, I do know that we did get a threat at one point when we were doing, not even negotiations, when it came to the race of an elected official, that if we didn't do this, they would cut that SWIFT and certain. We did get some other threats that were given to us at the same time. I understand where you're coming from, but there is more to what was promised to us. Now, is it possible that now that we've had some changes, I'm actually been thinking about it and realizing, I think what we did was just move the chairs around, because I think that downstairs DSU unit that was left unmanned was probably, because it was way before I came here, was probably set up to handle the same customers we're now doing upstairs.
No.
Okay, because I don't know what that was for, but it was
No.
an empty use. But either way, we were promised these beds if we were to do this. So that's something that we began to count on. Now, as we went through this process where they started getting shipped out and coming back, in my opinion, it was changed because of some different issues and angers that have come along when it comes to wages. But at the same time, perhaps maybe then we should have not have used the beds for this other type of care and custody upstairs. I don't know. But what are all the beds, and how many should we have in there with all the beds, including the care and custody?
There's 112
upstairs?
beds.
112, and then there's usually boats?
No, there's no boats. We can't count boats as beds, Commissioner
No,
Netherland.
but you can count boats for handling the people. We've handled as many as 151 in that jail before the renovation.
And guess what? We're not going to manage that jail with 3 people walking over the backs of inmates on the floor, sleeping on beds in the day room. That ain't going to happen anymore, Commissioner.
Okay, and you have 31, you said, right?
31 what?
31
Uniform corrections deputies.
corrections
Correct.
officers. Okay, so what is that? That's 6.
6 what?
full-time that could be available?
I don't get your question.
Five bodies per shift.
Correct.
Yeah.
So you take vacation, which you guys have negotiated those contracts
That's why there's 5.
with amount of leave, sick leave, holiday pay, comp time out of that. It takes 5 corrections deputy positions to cover 1 8-hour shift, 24 hours a day,
Yes.
365
That's
days a
correct.
year. So the minimum staffing is 3. And there's often times we have people out on light duty, they're out on medical leave, they're on an FMLA, they're on vacations, and we're down to 3 people working that jail with 100 inmates on a night shift.
And I understand that 3 times 5 is 15, and that's taking that into account. But so no, I know, because I understand some of this is directed at me. And the thing is I've just told you what I know as being a commissioner here also, and I'm entitled to my opinion.
You are.
Just as well.
You
So
are.
that's been an issue all the way through this.
But I can tell you that I don't know what's happened in the past. I can only talk from what's happened since September of last year when I came here, and from the readings of the King report in 2006. That's where I got my data and my information from. I related to you about the 100 and 144. That jail was not being ran properly. We have maximum security prisoners housed with minimum security prisoners. That ain't happening anymore, because guess what? I'm not going to lose my house, and neither is the sheriff. So we are here to protect the inmates, we're here to protect the staff, and we're here to protect this community, and ultimately, we're here to protect you guys too, by running a safe jail that is constitutional.
Thank you, Chief.
Welcome. Any other questions?
No questions? Thank you.
Under Sheriff Barrett, I'm going to make some comments prior to what Chief Hansen had to deal with. When we go back to those original bed designs, when we go back to the original construction, which was well over 3.5 years ago that took there was identified blind spots in the construction, so bunks had to be removed. There was unidentified areas that could not be safely housed for inmates that had to be removed. Those numbers fluctuated back and forth. We told you that 144 at the time included holding cells. It included everything. That included every possible bed that could be used in that facility. Those numbers were then modified based on construction identifications, which we didn't have any control over. We had the state LEMAP team come in and give recommendations on those issues. Chief Sperling went over there as an interim and identified issues and worked with the construction and facility folks. So this number moved back and forth. We also have to remember that during that time, we attempted to get alternative sentencing. Clear back as early as 2013, alternative sentencing was mentioned. It wasn't until a 1.5 years ago that it was finally approved. We started to hire. That's the first employee that was hired under that. Then it was removed from the budget. Then we had to come in and do a negotiation on food services contract to reinstitute that. Otherwise, that upstairs wouldn't even be used right now. So to go out there and use old numbers without context of how we got where we got through construction design, through experts coming in and giving us advice, through litigation that pointed out issues, through change in personnel and staff, through change of correctional philosophies to move to our alternatives sentencing programs, to conversations with judges and prosecutors, to outsourcing contracts, to DOC, swift and certain contracts, without providing all that context in a 3-year window of how we went from an empty facility to where we are now, isn't fair to the public, nor to the people who are trying to supervise these inmates and run things. So I don't mind providing opinions. I got 0 problems with that. What I have a problem with is when you don't provide a timeline of context that gets us to where we're at. And this person and that staff is running this jail as efficiently and effectively, given the staff, the budget, and the changes in law, the PREA issues, the mental health issues, the alternative sentencing programs. He is doing the best with his staff and leadership to possibly do. And to go out there and make intimations that that's not happening is not genuine and it's not accurate. So if we're going to speak to the issues, let's speak with the context of how we got here And this thing evolved over a 25-year period. It started well before this sheriff ever took office. We've got historical context going way, way back, and we have been trying to find a way to make it safe, effective, efficient. So there is a lot of issues, and we hoped in inviting the board over, along with Director Pinter, that we would be able to identify perhaps in one of the architectural designs, a closet was actually identified as a holding cell. Okay, these are the things that we hope we would get to common understanding with numbers. So to throw numbers back and forth without the constructional limitations that we had, that changed removing of beds to eliminate blind spots, to place cameras, boom, and to lay all the jail woes on one sheriff or one administration without going back to when Bob Holter talked about this as sheriff, when Sheriff Shepard talked about this, when Sheriff Weibart talked about this. This has been a long-term problem, which is why it's been one of the main focuses for the criminal justice working team and the judges and everybody else. So if we're going to talk, let's talk about accurate numbers and the changes those numbers.
And Under Sheriff, the
Thank
numbers I used are only a couple of years old. I don't know about 25 years, and I'd be more than happy to sit down and see if you want to explain to me the differences and what's changed. In a heartbeat, I've always made myself.
We will walk you back over again and show you where things have been removed and what bunks and how these beds have changed. That offer is always open. It's your facility. If you need to come over and take a look at how we're managing your facility, we're more than willing to make that accommodation. All right.
Can I ask a question?
Wrong.
So how do the logistics, you have, let's start with your number 94 beds. Now, how do the logistics of the number of available beds change? In essence, if you have a criminal, say you're full, and you bring in a hardened criminal, how does that change the logistics or the number of beds you have available?
Well, we only have so many, do you want me to get back up there? Sure. We only have so many maximum security cell beds and minimum security beds and medium security beds. So her question was, what happens when we bring somebody in that's a maximum security prisoner? How does that affect the population? Well, obviously I can't house that person with a minimum security person. I'm not going to put a murderer in jail with somebody that's in there for a no-vol. So I have to find a bed somewhere for that guy. And typically in our facility and facilities statewide, that's the real estate that is lacking, is the individual rooms with the individual places to put people and to segregate them. So that means that we have to do some juggling around and find a place for them. Or kick somebody out.
That two-person room turns into one,
Correct.
which affects your overall number.
Correct.